Wow, what a change over 2020. Well, you know, given these temperatures this morning, I hope y'all had a good summer. My name is Charlie Sellers, for those that don't know me. I'm the mayor of Blowing. I would like to say welcome to all of you on this Memorial Day weekend. For those that are not aware, Memorial Day is in remembrance of those that have passed while serving our country. Veterans Day is a day when we celebrate all veterans that have served our country and their families. So today, or this weekend, is to honor those that have passed while serving our fine country and allow us to live the way we are able to live now. So once again, thank you to all of you that have served and the families that have endured while those have served. Today, I would like to welcome a few people, the dignitaries that are here. One is Wade Wilmuth. Wade Wilmuth served in Germany in the Army. Is that correct, Wade?
Correct.
He went on. He did serve as a state legislator. He served as mayor of Boone. But I think we saw Wade over here more in Blowing Rock than we saw him in Boone. So I don't know if he was, somebody said he was the honorary mayor of Blowing Rock. But I would like to say, Wade, thank you for your service to the military, to the communities. You're well thought of. Thank you so very much. I understand there's a Charlie Whalen here, one of our county commissioners. Thank you so much for taking the time to come over. Ray Pickett. Ray's with our state legislature now. He lives in Blowing Rock. Thank you for attending, Ray. And, I think it's really great to see everyone here, and thank you for coming. That being said, I would like to lead off with David Rogers with the national anthem. Would you please stand?
It's always an honor to sing the national anthem, but especially on a day like today, in commemoration of the men and women who have served our country over the years to protect our freedom and our way of life. As a newspaper editor and a history major in college, suffice it to say that I like to read and write. So when Albert asked me to sing today, first thing I did was read. And I was astonished to learn the many things I did not know about the origins of our Star-Spangled Banner. So then I wrote this short essay to share with you this morning. Many of us gathered here today know that the music for America's national anthem was composed by John Stafford Smith, who I understand never set foot in America. He was an Englishman who was born in Gloucester, England in 1750 and died in London in 1836. When he was in his 20s, Smith gained a reputation as a composer and organist before being admitted to the Anacreontic Society, which at that time was a gentleman's club for amateur musicians. They met in various taverns around London. In short, it was a drinking club named after the ancient Greek poet Anacreon, who of course was a lover of wine. John Stafford Smith is credited for composing the club's official song, the Anacreontic Song. Historical accounts suggest that it became a popular drinking song on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. After Francis Scott Key set his poem Defense of Fort McHenry to the tune of Smith's drinking song, and it officially became the national anthem of the United States by an act of Congress in 1931, I suspect that a lot of Brits took to drinking a lot more wine, beer, and ale. Francis Scott Key was an attorney and amateur poet living near Baltimore during the War of 1812 between England and the United States. This was just 29 years after the American Revolution had ended. The fledgling country's government took offense to the British Navy capturing American merchant ships on the high seas and pressing the sailors into service in their military to go fight Napoleon in Europe. But with the defeat of Napoleon in April 1814, the British turned their full military attention to the United States. Their basic strategy was to hammer major coastal cities with bombardment by their powerful navy before an assault on land. In August 1814, they started what they called their Chesapeake Campaign and began with Washington, D.C., the U.S. capital. They defeated the American forces at Bladensburg, Maryland on August 24, 1814. The British forces landed and torched the Library of Congress, the House of Representatives, the Senate, the White House, the Supreme Court, and more. With victory at Washington, the British turned their attention to Baltimore, which had become a major port city a little further up Chesapeake Bay. Within just a couple of weeks, they had Baltimore blockaded and surrounded by a powerful Navy force. On September 3rd, 1814, Francis Scott Key and a compatriot set sail on what was called a truce ship to speak with the British naval commanders. One of the area's leading physicians had been taken prisoner by the British. Their goal for this meeting was to negotiate his release. But while on board the British vessel, the Americans overheard the British plans for an attack on Baltimore. So even though they were successful in negotiating the physician's release, the British commanders wouldn't let Key and his men return home until after the upcoming battle. From his perch on a British ship, Key had a first-hand view of the bombardment of Fort McHenry. Even when the battle had stopped and the firing of the rockets and cannon had grown silent that night, Key did not know the outcome. He didn't know who had won or lost the battle. Then at dawn the next morning, that's when he saw the U.S. flag flying triumphantly with its 15 bars and 15 stripes at the time, flying triumphantly over the rubble on shore, and was inspired right there on the British ship to scribble a first draft of the poem on a scrap of paper he carried in his coat pocket. He knew that his countrymen had persevered. Key and his companions were finally released on September 16, 1814. It was just a couple of days after the battle, but the British had held them captive a full 13 days, almost 2 weeks. Back in Baltimore, he returned to where he was staying at the Indian Queen's Hotel and there finished his poem. While I think it is ironic that Key's words were set to the music of a popular English drinking song, ultimately, Francis Scott Key's lyrics are telling a story of bravery and courage under fire. They are telling the British that we will not be subjugated to the rule of a foreign nation. They are telling the British that in spite of their barrage, any victory would be at a very dear cost because of America's resolve to remain an independent nation. While I sing this and tell Francis Scott Key's story, close your eyes and picture yourself behind or on the walls of Fort McHenry. See the rockets lighting up the night sky. See the tattered flag through the clouds of smoke and haze, waving triumphantly. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Well, David, if you ever give up the newspaper, there's always singing. Great job. And now I would like to introduce the Reverend Hagee for our invocation, and then following that would be Mr. Albert Jans.
For more than 100 years, service members in the Episcopal tradition and beyond have received a copy of the Armed Forces Prayer Book. And so this morning I offer a prayer that is a weaving of 3 prayers from that prayer book that has been a source of strength for so many in service to our country. Let us pray. O God, our strength, we give you great thanks for the many blessings of this life, and most especially for the freedom which we possess, obtained at the cost of so many lives and sacrifices. Fill us with courage as we commend these beloved dead from our community and from across our nation, as we remember them this day and commend them to your mercy, asking that you give them eternal rest. Keep under your protecting care the armed forces of these United States and all who serve therein. Grant that they may be a sure defense and a safeguard for the people of this nation. Support them wherever duty takes them, on land or sea or in the air. And grant that they may fulfill their high calling as defenders of justice and freedom. And in your endless mercy, O God of every nation, guide the peoples of this world ever into the way of peace. All this we ask in your holy name. Amen.
All right, thank you so very much. I would like to introduce Albert Jans. I think you're now over our Legion here in Blowing Rock. They call that a commander, or
Yeah.
Albert said once after I took office, he had never been gavelled before. I gavelled him. Albert Jans. And Albert did prepare all this. He painstakingly took a lot of time with assistance from many others, so thank you very much, Albert.
Well, what Charlie didn't tell you was he's a working mayor. If you don't believe that, stand any street corner in town for about 5 minutes and he'll show up. I want to have the gentleman from Lenore come forward, 2 of them. This is Irv Uto and Wayne Mahalich. Wayne's 31 years in the U.S. Navy, retired. You retired in 3 years from the Navy.
No, from the Army.
The Army, I'm sorry.
The Army.
Oh.
I took the short retirement plan.
Well, I was trying to upgrade you today. But
There's no money involved in it.
anyway, these 2 gentlemen helped our post survive the last rough 2 years. And I want to personally thank you, gentlemen. They have a very active post in Lenore. How many? 300?
211.
211 members. So thank you, gentlemen.
Our pleasure. Should we leave now?
Yeah. Is Jennifer Brown here with the town of Blowing Rock, Parks and Rec? Yeah. Well, Charlie said I did this. Jennifer did most of it. And Thomas Steele is here. He's the IT guy. He's going to play a medley for us shortly. I want to introduce Jim West, who's our adjutant. Jim? Somebody asked me what an adjutant does. He does everything but print money.
I did, but they wouldn't take it.
His main duty is organizing, placing a little over 300 American flags on the graves of Blowing Rock's 2 cemeteries. So, Jim, it's all yours.
Thank you. And that's part of the Memorial Weekend that we do this, and some of you who are here who helped us, and we thank you very much. There's Susie Green, Mike Page, Albert Yount, and let's see, are the Troyer family here? And 3 sons were out there with us. So we thank you for your involvement. And last, and almost not least, I spent, what was that, a good 35 minutes with Sue going up and down the aisles. Thank you, Sue Sweeting. I'd now like to introduce Mike and Pete Page, new members of our Legion, who will read some of the names of the fallen from Blowing Rock.
Thank you, Joe. You want to take the left side? This is in memory of those who made the supreme sacrifice in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. Lynn Coffey,
Lloyd Hampton,
Milton Green,
Daniel Teague,
Harley Hampton,
Albert Walser,
Frank Baldwin,
Dillard Curley,
Ralph M. Brown,
Ernest Presnell,
John H. Calloway,
Clyde Story,
O.D. Green,
Jewel Tate,
J.B. Hollifield,
Dillard Triplett,
William P. Kephart,
Earl Ward,
James H. Benfield,
Edward E. Green.
Donald E. Parsons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Pete. I'm moved to say, how many people were related to someone of those names that were just read? Could you raise your hands, please? I see. It's a special meaning for those who lost someone. I'd now like to introduce Cully Tarleton.
Thank you very much, Jim. It is my privilege to honor and pay tribute to 2 military heroes, both of whom passed away as a direct result of their military service. On this Memorial Day weekend, it's altogether fitting that we honor them and all like them who died as a result of their service to our great country. Both these heroes have local ties to Blowing Rock. Billy Fox of Granite Falls, North Carolina, just down the road a piece, served 2 active duty tours in Vietnam. Billy Fox died last year of complications of Agent Orange. Billy was the father of Blowing Rock town manager Shane Fox, and Billy is interred in Caldwell County. Shane, would you raise your hand? There's Shane right there. Shane, we honor your dad today for his service and for his sacrifice. Jerry Wayne Matheson served 2 active tours in Vietnam. Jerry Matheson died from complications of Agent Orange. Jerry was the brother of Blowing Rock Town Commissioner Doug Matheson. Jerry is interred at the National Military Cemetery in Johnson City, Tennessee. And Doug Matheson, would you raise your hand, standing right there? Doug, we honor your brother today for both his service and his sacrifice. Thank you.
Thomas is going to play us a military medley. I want to introduce a gentleman that's top timber in any category you can think of. And lucky for us, he's also our town manager, Shane Fox.
Thank you. First of all, I'll start with saying thank you to Mr. Albert Yount for continuing to put a tremendous amount of time and effort each year into this event. I think it's telling, especially a year after COVID with the crowd that we have here. It's wonderful to see. I'll echo some comments that have been made from a thank you standpoint. From a town manager perspective, couldn't be prouder of our park and recreation staff led by Jennifer Brown. Thomas Steele, who's here, Baker Stanley, who's walking up behind us now as we speak, put in a tremendous amount of effort in the last number of days to have this event, and then the reception that's in the American Legion to follow. Also, Melissa Pickett, who's our BRAC chair, wife of Ray Pickett, his better half, has put in a tremendous amount of volunteer hours into this. So thank you to everyone involved, and appreciate all the work that's been put into this. So I've been asked to speak on the history, a brief history of Memorial Park, and I'm going to throw in the American Legion building as well, because I'll take you back to a time in which they were all undeveloped and the same piece of property essentially. But so dating back to 1884, if you can imagine, nothing was here other than, I'm sure, woods and open land. And a development began that was known as the Watauga Hotel, later years known as the Watauga Inn. That establishment stood roughly in this property that we all see here as kind of town center for nearly 50 years. It was destroyed first of all, the first time in the early 1920s by fire, and then rebuilt, and then unfortunately destroyed for the last time in 1926 on this site. We do have the 1888 museum here, I think, that is an example of one of the cottages that stood within this area. And so fast forward to 1926, and unfortunately a destructive fire completely destroyed the property and left ashes, essentially. And for over a decade, this property, as we stand here now as Memorial Park and the American Legion property, was left vacant. And in 1939, the town of Blowng Rock began the process of acquiring this property and first and foremost, turning this area into a park. Not the park as we see it today, I'm sure, with the playground and things of that nature, but a green space and an ability for a town center to have a place to go and I'm sure have a picnic. Fast forward another 6 years to 1945, and Mayor Grover Robbins, who I think grandfather of Mayor Charlie Sellers here, was mayor at that time, also chair of the Chamber of Commerce, purchased the property from the Coffey family for the area that we now know as the American Legion. And so, you know, if you think back that far back from where we were, from the hotel to the green space to the American Legion to where we are now, it's just an unbelievable transformation. In 1946, Post 256 was established. So I think it was just this morning that we were going back and doing the math, and this is the 75th anniversary of Post 256. Fast forward until 1952, and the town granted Post 256 a 99-year lease on the property where the American Legion is built today. Post 256, I think at that time, if I recall looking back through some of the data, had about 40 members. And those 40 members, starting in 1952 and over a 7-year span, fundraising efforts, donation efforts, built the American Legion building that is standing there today. So in 1959, the first meeting was held at the American Legion building that we'll all be entertained at in just a few moments. And then later that year, the town of Blowng Rock decided to establish a Park and Recreation Committee that would go on to establish what we know as Memorial Park. And that's where the name Memorial Park came from, in honor and remembrance of those who fell during World War II. So for a number of years, obviously Memorial Park was transformed into where it is today, with the number of children that are playing on the playground and all of us having the chance to enjoy it. The American Legion building was utilized by Post 256 exclusively, and owned and maintained and operated by Post 256 until 2011, when it was turned over to the town of Blowng Rock. Almost immediately, the town of Blowng Rock, along with Post 256, began a grant writing process along with a simultaneous fundraising process. And in 2015, a little bit more than $300,000 worth of renovations was done, again, majority of which paid for by grant dollars and donations. And so today, after this event, we have an opportunity to go down and enjoy a reception. You'll see the renovations that took place just 6 years ago, and the fantastic building that we have. That building is utilized for a multitude of purposes, rented out quite exclusively or quite extensively in the summer months, and I think it's something for us all to be proud of. So that's my brief history of both Memorial Park and Post 256 and the American Legion building as it stands today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shane. I'd like to introduce Councilmember David Harwood. Where is David? There he goes. Come on over here, David. He's going to give us a little bit of, we've heard the history, now the future.
I tell you, the height adjustment on this thing's getting a real workout between Charlie and I and Shane and Jim. Some real differences there. Good morning and welcome to your Memorial Park. My name is David Harwood. I am honored to be a member of Blowing Rock's Town Council. I'm also on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and it's also an honor to be introduced by Jim West. Jim is an outstanding citizen, wonderful veteran, and Jim was the chair of our planning board for 18 years. And I sat beside Jim on that committee, not for 18 years, and learned quite a bit from him then. So thank you, Jim. I've been asked to talk a little bit about Memorial Park and what our future plans are for it. And as Shane has already told you, the town acquired this land in 1939. So for 82 years, this park has been providing rest, relaxation, and a place for reflection. And it's just a wonderful asset. It's probably the most accessible asset that the town has. And if you don't believe it's enjoyed, just turn around and look. And this is every day during the season. And it's just a fabulous asset that we have. And it's a special place for me. My children grew up in this park. I pass through it every opportunity that I get to between my home and the post office, that I walk quite frequently. And so I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Over the years, the town has added quite a number of amenities to the park. As Shane said, it hasn't always been like you see it. And currently, Memorial Park offers tennis, basketball, volleyball, horseshoes, if you're an avid horseshoe player, picnic shelters, lots of places to rest and relax, have an ice cream cone, and most notably our new playground. Maybe one of the best, probably is one of the best playgrounds, a destination playground, if you will, in North Carolina. So if you're spry enough, it's not just for kids, okay? So feel free to enjoy it. On May 3rd of this year, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee applied for almost a $500,000 grant with the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. These grants are known as Part F grants. And each year the state awards these grants to municipalities that can demonstrate quality in their planning for their parks and their recreation facilities, public involvement in the planning process, and also the town's ability to maintain and operate these parks. Blowing Rock excels in all of these areas, and I want to give a kudos to Jennifer Brown, the head of our Parks and Recreation Department, and her staff for all that they do. And it's not just the parks that this park and the other parks that we have. Landscaping, the hanging baskets on Main Street, the landscaping on 321, all of that falls within that department. And Blowing Rock is known as a park. The whole town is, and so much of that credit needs to go to our Parks and Recreation Department. So these Part F grant funds, talk just a little bit about that. These are funds that are awarded on a dollar-for-dollar basis. And the town has been very good about putting away money, and we have almost $500,000 to match that grant if we are fortunate enough to receive it. We'll know in September whether or not we get it, and if we don't get it, we'll probably apply for it again next year. So we have money, and so what are we going to do with almost $1 million if we get it. Well, as you can see, our park is well loved, and we need to continue to maintain that. We want to make some improvements to that. And let me just go down a quick list of what we're planning on doing with that. All of this information is available on the town's website. If you go onto the town's website, on the left is a menu, and there's a link there for Part F. So I invite you to check that out. There's a map of what we're planning on doing with that. And as we go through the rest of this year, we're going to be looking for public input on other things that we're thinking about with our Parks and Rec. So I would invite you to participate in those. The council's emails are on the website. Please let us know your thoughts by email. Attend the public meetings that we'll be having. Would love to hear from you. But a couple of things that we're looking to do should we be fortunate enough to get those Part F grants. We're looking at refurbishing our existing tennis courts. They're in need of repair. We're looking at resurfacing those and combining that with some new pickleball courts. So we're going to be expanding our pickleball opportunities, which will be has been requested a lot, and we want to include that in our planning. We're also looking at relocating the existing volleyball court more to the south here in the park. And the area where the volleyball court is becoming a picnic shelter. This is an ideal location for that because it will not only serve as a place to get out of the sun when you're playing tennis or waiting on a tennis or pickleball court, but it is also very close to the playground, and we have a lot of parents that have asked for a place to sit, get out of the sun, but be in view shed of where their kids are. So I think that will be a great amenity. As I mentioned, we're relocating and redoing our volleyball courts. That's a great need that we have. We're also going to be adding 1 or 2 new activities, if you can believe it, to this playground. This will be, Jennifer has picked out 1 or 2 things that we think would be great amenities to an already fabulous space. Shuffleboard and cornhole. Believe it or not, these are some of the most requested activities, and we don't have those. So we're looking at adding those to the park as well. Our restrooms are in need of renovation and capacity. We don't have enough restrooms. So as you can see, we're going to go through another summer of having some porta potties. We're going to fix that. We're going to renovate what we have and probably double the capacity that we have. Very important. And we're going to be looking at our sidewalks, our access. We're going to be replacing some deteriorating retaining walls and making our park more handicapped accessible, more ADA compliant. So a lot going on. The other thing that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee is going to be looking at is updating our 2018 master plan for our Parks and Recreation. Not rewriting, but updating it. We're going to be looking at long-term maintenance of items. There's a lot of things that we need to address, and that's where we'll be looking for a lot of public input from you. So look forward to that. In closing, I just want to say that we are very blessed to have this park and very blessed to live in this community. It's important for us to, especially this day, to enjoy it and remember those that sacrifice so that we can have the freedom to enjoy it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, David. David had the distinct honor of living beside me for 9 years one day.
Too many.
Would George Wilcox come forward? George is a resident of Blowing Rock, formerly from Charlotte. I think you still slip down there every now and then, don't you? He's going to introduce our featured speaker.
Well, Commander Yount, Adjutant West, and sincerely our honored veterans, thank you so much for your service to our great country. Let's give them a round of applause. Friends and neighbors here in Blowing Rock, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased today to introduce to you a speaker who is truly an outstanding leader of our great state. He's played a major role in economic development for our state when he served particularly as president for 23 years of Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte, and took it from a school that had one campus to 6 wonderful campuses serving over 70,000 students a year. And his mission was principally to prepare these folks with knowledge and skills to take good jobs, not only from local businesses, but also from national and international businesses that come to North Carolina and will come to North Carolina because of our skilled labor force. He's done an outstanding job in that and served with distinction as president of CPCC. After that, our speaker started up the Museum of the Bible up in Washington. If you visited it, you'll know it's a magnificent facility, and he was executive director and got it off to a good, outstanding start, and it's a wonderful facility. He decided to come back to North Carolina. When he came back to North Carolina, he was recruited to head up a special program to train chief executive officers from around the country in a program sponsored by Coca-Cola Consolidated in Charlotte. And he did that, as he does everything, with absolutely outstanding distinction. I might mention to you that during his tenure at Central Piedmont, it became nationally recognized. And to give you some example of that, President George W. Bush came down to the campus specifically to recognize Central Piedmont as the outstanding community college in America. And then later, President Barack Obama spoke highly of it in one of his State of the Union addresses and had one of the distinguished graduates from that institution there for the State of the Union. So it really has been a very, very outstanding program. Also, along the way, our speaker has been involved in a lot of community activities, including history activities. And he's a man who's interested in conservation and history, and he put the two together and working in a Greenway history walk in Charlotte that you'll enjoy seeing. We've got some statues down there that are very interesting statues of some of the leaders in North Carolina. He's working on one now that Cully Tarleton can relate to, of our friend Lunis McLuhan, who was one of the really great entertainers and great musicians in the history of North Carolina, backing up lots of notable musicians. So Tony's very busy in that project right now. He serves on numerous boards of various corporations and organizations. He's a recipient of the Order of the Longleaf Pine. He's also a recipient of the Urban League's Whitney M. Young Humanitarian Award, the Association of Community Colleges Trustees National CEO of the Year Award, and the World Citizen Award of the Charlotte Council of World Affairs. And that's a very prestigious award. I can assure you they had some outstanding national leaders accept that. And not to think that he's also not been busy on other things. He's also written 21 books about different topics. And we're very fortunate to have him located here in the wonderful Blowing Rock area now with his lovely and talented wife, Beth. And we're just delighted at this time to introduce to you a great patriot, a man of profound faith, and an outstanding North Carolinian, Dr. Tony Zeiss.
George is more than generous. You know, when you get in a big position, they sort of give you things. I guess after a while, you stay as long as I did, they give you things. The truth of the matter is, if I've achieved anything, it's God and my wife Beth sitting right over there. Thank you for being here. What a wonderful day. It brings back so many memories, doesn't it? To those of us who remember going to Memorial Days, or sometimes they call them Decoration Days in the North. You know, it's amazing. It's a very special time. As an educator, I did some research so we could sort of do a brief history of how this day came about, what it's all about. George, by the way, I want to thank you also, for you and Betsy, for being such great friends to us. You are the greatest. Appreciate it. And a great donor to Central Piedmont for a long time. Memorial Day is often defined as this: a federal holiday honoring the military personnel who have died in the performance of their military duties while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. Of course, it happens in May each year, the last Monday. So here's that brief history I wanted to tell you about it, and that hopefully it'll help us to recognize how important it is. Maybe before I even do that, George, you started, I'm going to finish it. The veterans, hold your hands up so we can see who you are. Hold your hands up. God bless you. Thank you so much for your business. Thank you so much. Now, I'll tell you, things are changing, as you know. I remember we had 8 children in my family. On Memorial Day, we were there, every one of us. And I see just one child here today. I wish all of those were over here. Things are changing. We've got to be aware of that, as you know. For example, President Ronald Reagan reminded us in one of his great speeches. He said, I'm quoting, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction." It's never more true than today. Honoring fallen military dates back to ancient times, to Grecian times and Roman times. As a matter of fact, you probably studied about Pericles. He was that great statesman in Athens. In fact, he was the one who insisted on building the Acropolis, if you've been there. And he is also credited by historians as being the father of democracy. And he's also recorded to have held annual commemorations for fallen Greek soldiers. So this isn't anything new, but it's something that appears to me, certainly, that is critical for the culture of a country. Our American Memorial Day founder, I read it, is attributed to Federal General John A. Logan, who commanded a post-Civil War Union veterans group called the Grand Old Army of the Republic. Now, don't get excited. I know we're in the South. I know all about it. And my wife's big in the DAR and the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and she'll say, no, that's not the way it happened. So I looked that up too. Logan's own wife, thank you, wherever David is, some reporter talked to his wife and said, where'd the idea come from for your husband to go to Congress and put this thing together and get them to approve it in 1868? And she's quoted as saying that her husband got the idea from women's groups across the South who began decorating graves of fallen Confederates well before the end of the war between the states. So this, by the way, that Southern tradition continues. Many states still have Confederate Memorial Day. In fact, Beth just led one in Charlotte 2 weeks ago. But this Memorial Day is for all wars of all people and all of those who have fallen and all of those who are currently serving. Since 1971, Decoration Day has been called Memorial Day. Now, when I was young, I remember United stood together. Families came with their children too, so they learned the same tradition. And we had a great time, a lot of pomp and circumstance. I remember playing in the band. We'd march up and down and then march out to the graveyard and decorate the graves. Some of you might remember that. But I'll bet many of you remember the symbol of Memorial Day, and that really was a special occasion for all of us. The veterans would hand out the poppies. Do you remember the poppies? The red-colored, beautiful little flowers. Of course, they were artificial. They would make them up. They give them to the kids for free and candy, but then the adults, they were expected to pay whatever they could pay to help support the veterans' homes that day. This red flower was immortalized. That's not the right word. Anyway, it is Beth, what's that word? Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote something there. It must have been a typo. But anyway, the point is, he made this a part of history forever. And his name is Canadian a Canadian lieutenant colonel, and he was a surgeon, named John McCrae. He immortalized, that's the one, he immortalizes, forgive me. But anyway, John McCrae noticed a battlefield full of dead and wounded Allied soldiers after the Second Battle of Ypres in Belgium in World War I. He was moved emotionally to write a much-loved poem about it titled In Flanders Fields. Maybe you've heard about it. Allow me to read just two quick stanzas. Here it is. In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders field. We don't want to forget this. Our duty and our honor to love those people who sacrificed and the families who sacrificed for what we have today. Since the year 2000, Congress asked that the Memorial Day, believe it or not, we're supposed to raise put our flags at half-staff or half-mast. Somebody knew it. Until noon. And so at noon, check your watch, somebody's supposed to raise it to full staff or full mast. And that's a new tradition since 2000. You might also know, how many of you have seen that wonderful building, the Lincoln Memorial in the mall in Washington, D.C.? It's so wonderful, iconic. Intentionally, they dedicated it on Memorial Day. I also looked up some famous quotes, and of course there were hundreds of them, of people who had given Memorial Day addresses, and I'm going to share just 3 or 4 with you. Here they are. Here's the first one from General Douglas MacArthur. He said, quote, "No man is entitled to the blessings of freedom unless he be vigilant in its preservation." Here's an unknown author, same quote, another quote. "Our flag does not fly because the wind moves it. It flies with the last breath of each soldier who died protecting it." Claudia Pemberton said this, "America without her soldiers would be like God without his angels." My favorite is Mark Twain. He's quoted as saying, "Patriotism is supporting your country all of the time and your government when it deserves it." How about Old Glory? Anybody remember the poem Old Glory? I'm not going to read it all, it's pretty long. But it's all about our flag, Old Glory. I'm going to read just the first stanza and then we'll jump to the close. Here it is. "My name is Old Glory. I stand with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident. I am proud. When I'm flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer. I am recognized all over the world. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave, dear God. Long may I wave." So, ladies and gentlemen, as we honor and respect these guardians of freedom, who gave the last full measure of devotion to God, duty, honor, and country, I don't believe we can ignore the fact that we're facing a new challenge to liberty right now. This is the same liberty for which we honor those men who fell, that they fought for. The same liberty hasn't changed. And I wrestled with myself, should I talk about this? And I decided, if I don't talk about it, who's going to talk about it? We're all Americans. So I'm going to talk about it. To overlook this current assault on our liberty, and I won't go into any debate over it, but you know it's there, would be disrespectful to the people we honor today, and I think it would be dishonorable of us to ignore it. Unfortunately, this new threat to our republic appears to be strongly supported within our own country. It's a new day. Sadly, there are those among us who do not love and honor God. There are those among us who do not love and honor families, do not love and honor our Constitution, nor do they honor the rule of law, and they are defunding those who would protect us. Neither do they love and honor our sovereign country, the greatest country the world has ever seen. This socialization movement elevates government at the expense of citizens and their liberties. Even our freedom of speech is under attack. You've felt it if you're honest with yourself. Many people today are intimidated to speak against this threat for fear of retaliation. This situation causes me to reflect upon what Edmund Burke, the English statesman, warned us about. Here's his quote: "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women to do nothing." So what can we do? Begs the question. In this time of challenge and anxiety, patriotic Americans must be, first of all, courageous and be able to speak. The way you feel doesn't mean we're always right, and we need to be listeners as much as we're speakers. He says, Samuel Davies, he was a great Presbyterian preacher in the 1760s, and he was also president of Princeton, and he gave this advice to soldiers: courage is an essential character of a good soldier, not a savage, ferocious person, not a foolhardy person insensitive to danger, but a calm, deliberate, rational, and courageous person with fortitude will win the day. So that's what we're talking about. So I encourage you, I have four other suggestions. One, I encourage you to be resolute but cheerful as you exercise your freedom of speech. Of course, we should also remember the good book instructs us to be gracious in defending our God-given rights and our hope in things eternal. 2, fully support godly and patriotic people that run for public office. It's a hard job. Their hearts are right, isn't that? You know that, Mayor. I know it from just talking with you. Their hearts are right. And that means financially. I've got friends who say, boy, we've got to support this guy, and we've got to support this lady. Oh, that's great. What have you done? Oh, well, I support him. Have you given them any money? Give them the money. You want to get them an office? Give them the money. All right, they get that for free. Okay. 3. Oh, by the way, we have to reach out to these younger generations. That's the other part of it too. We got to get them more engaged, involved, and we have to pay attention to the curriculum. I'm an educator. I can tell you, you have little committees that decide the curriculum that all these young people are being taught from, and believe me, they're intentional in what they're doing and not doing. So that's enough of that. Let's go to 3. Remember our Bill of Rights, ladies and gentlemen. Our Bill of Rights. Claim them. Talk about them. That's what made us great. Think about your mothers, your fathers, your grandmothers, your grandfathers. They all carry that same tradition on, and hold on to it as much as you can. Don't give up your Bill of Rights. A lot of people died so that you could have them, tens of thousands. 4, we should also encourage one another whenever we can. Be cheerful. And this one's the most important. Exercise prayer every day. Prayer every day. It's our most powerful weapon. Abe Lincoln said, might does not make right. Right makes might. Pray every day. In chapter 4 of the book of Philippians, the Apostle Paul told the early Christians, listen to this, you know in chapter 4, rejoice in the Lord. Let your gentle spirits be known to all men. Be anxious for nothing, and the peace of God will guard your hearts and the minds in Christ Jesus. This is as true today as it was 2,000 years ago. So be of good cheer. Remember our country's motto. You know what our country's motto is? In God we trust. Thank you, David. In God we trust. All right, so don't lose heart. 2 Corinthians 3:17 has been for all of the battles, all of the wars we fought with, a lot of military, got a lot of comfort out of this one little verse. 2 Corinthians, Paul wrote it also, or said it, 3:17. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. There is liberty. Finally, I think we should keep rejoicing because there are 2 anchors of hope that I want to share with you. One is from man and one is from God, and I'll close up. Thomas Jefferson wisely wrote these words in our Declaration of Independence. You know what? You could probably repeat it with me. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We don't guarantee happiness, it's pursuit of happiness. Life and liberty. Liberty's on the lips of every founding father that we had. It should be on ours as well. So hold on to that one, because we haven't lost this earthly and temporal historic legacy of freedom. We haven't lost it, so cling to it like a lifeline. The second one, this second anchor is even more important because it's eternal in nature. It is this: we humans will never know what the future holds, but we know who holds the future. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless our military. God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Now to David Rogers for the taps.
Before I start, I want to make special notice of Shirley Snyder here today. She's been a fixture in these ceremonies for many, many years, and was back in the early 2000s. She was the person that sang the national anthem. So, Shirley, great to see you. Day is done, gone the sun, from the hills, from the lake, from the skies. All is well, safely rest. God is nigh.
See you at the Legion Hall, which is that away.